Okay, thank you. I certainly won't be talking a lot during any of this. I'm glad to be here and glad to be listening in. But I do want to be sure to introduce the person who'll be leading this meeting, who's serving as our interim AEL director. We're still recovering from the news about Anson leaving us. We are going to miss him greatly and wish him the best, and are so happy that we will be able to work with Mahalia Baldini in this transition and in working with the AEL community. So before we got started, I wanted to give Mahalia sufficient greetings and thanks for taking over this role, and then I wanted to hand it off to her. So Mahalia, this is now over with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Welcome, everybody. I'm Mahalia Baldini. For those of you on the committee who maybe don't know me directly, this is me up here. Thank you so much for today and for joining us. Before we get started, I just wanted to give a few minutes to our fearless director and supreme advocate, Anson Green, who is joining us, sadly, possibly for the last time as AEL State Director in that role. So Anson, did you want to talk for just a few minutes?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Commissioners, I'm happy to see you on board here. And I just wanted to send everybody my thanks for everything. I was the first person hired in AEL, and I'm really going to be the last one of the first crew that started this program, and it has really become such a fantastic asset to the state of Texas and to the commission, because we got great leaders like our commissioners and just great staff. Mahalia is going to be a fantastic interim director and has been around almost from the very beginning. So she knows just about as much as I do about the ins and outs of adult education and literacy. I'm thrilled to be going to Tyson Foods and working at the corporate end, world headquarters, developing career pathways. So I'm going to be likely not saying goodbye to you. There's 11 plants in Texas, and there's going to be a lot of work developing career pathways like we've done in Texas with Tyson. So I'll be sitting on the other side with folks like Diana and Sam Keeler, who's at the Tyson plant up there in Texoma. But really happy to be here. I'm not going to stay the whole time. Thrilled to see our commissioners there who've been great allies for adult education and literacy. And you'll be hearing from me soon enough on the other side. But thank you for everything, and I appreciate the time at TWC. Thank you.
Such a sad moment for all of us here, and I know that we've all just grown great depths under Anson's leadership, and he will be sorely missed moving forward. I believe we also actually have all of our commissioners on today's committee meeting, and I wanted to just take the time to welcome Chairman Daniels, who is also representing the public. If you wanted to say a couple of words, I'll give you the mic.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody making time to do this. These advisory committees that we have, they're pretty critical in our ability to really get on the ground information so that we can make sure our programming is exactly what it needs to be. Everything we're doing in the category of adult education and literacy, always critical, but I think we're beginning to see during this economic situation that we're seeing in the state, just how critical programs where people can get training to get upskilled or reskilled or skilled at all will give us a definite leg up as we continue to work our way out of this unemployment situation that we're having, and really looking at the economy for the rest of the year in the long term. The work that you're doing at AEL just becomes increasingly critical. I appreciate the volunteers, sincerely appreciate the staff that are working on it. Anson go to Arkansas and improve them by giving them some good Texas ideas. And so I'm sorry to see him go, but I'm excited for some of his future programs. I think he's going to have a great time, and really just want to see that all the goals and aims that we've set out for AEL, we've been reaching those, and Anson has helped us with that. And as we move forward, we're going to set new goals, and we're going to meet those too, because that's just the way we've been doing things. We've got this thing kicked off on the right foot, and I just fully anticipate continuing to see great things. So Anson can look back from Arkansas and say, I helped start that, and look how far they've gone. That's pretty exciting. So guys, thank you all of you.
Thank you so much, Chairman Daniels. And next, I will go to Commissioner Alvarez, who is also on today. I appreciate him being here. Commissioner representing the labor, did you have a couple comments for our committee members?
I did, but I first wanted to acknowledge the same sentiments that the chairman said about Anson. The one thing I can say about Anson was that he certainly elevated the AEL department to the next level. So I congratulate him and his team for the great work they've done. Listening to people around the state, hearing firsthand what they've experienced and what Anson and his team have been able to do to help individuals that have had barriers, you know, to employment, and what you and the committee, you as volunteers, have done to support his efforts is greatly appreciated. We couldn't have selected a better group of individuals from all walks of industry to serve as a volunteer advisory member. So we want to congratulate you again with the leadership under Anson Green, and with the support our advisory committee. You know, we thank you. Many Texans thank you. Not sure if you really know what you do for those individuals that have barriers to not only, you know, getting that entry level position, but what you do to motivate them to continue their education, you know. And I've seen individuals in disenfranchised, you know, the population that we experience. You know, I've seen Anson work with people in your group that have been incarcerated, and those individuals that have a deficiency, and again, getting that first job to a successful career. So I really just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the committee for all the work that you do, and also to Anson Green, you know, and I have stated this before, not just because Anson's leaving, but I've expressed how proud I am that Anson was able to do what he did for the agency, and how well he spoke of the committee members. So Anson, thank you for what you did. I mean, it's certainly obvious that you again elevated the program to the next level. So thank you for your leadership, and I look forward to continue working with the members of the committee. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we also have with us Commissioner Demerson, who is representing the employers, and a big topic of what we'll be discussing in today's meeting. So Commissioner Demerson, did you have any comments?
Yes, I do. And thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to do so. Mahalia, first of all, congratulations on being named the interim director in that stead. So we're glad to see you in that position. You introduced Anson as the fearless director, the supreme advocate, you know, so we're all bound to that in that regard. But I had the opportunity to be with you guys in February. I took it early on and said I wanted to know what you're doing, know what's happening. And in February, the annual conference or the meeting that you guys had there, Anson, thank you so much for inviting me into that. That was something that I'll take away forever. I mean, that's a heartfelt event where you really see the work in action and folks being recognized in that regard. How you mentioned there's going to be an employer perspective. Diana Contreras is going to bring that report. And so we're looking forward to that report in regards to employers and in the internship opportunities as well. But lastly, let me just close out. Donald Tracy had a comment in the chat box. Anthony says, stop sending those North Arkansas hills or what have you to Texas. And so that's Don Tracy's ode to you in that regard. And I have a son that's going to attend the University of Arkansas, so he'll be up there as a proud Razorback. And so we saw that information. But thank you for what you've done in this regard. I've been on the trenches with you on the other side, not in this commission role, but at the staff level. And what we were able to achieve day in and day out means a lot. And you being at the table has always been a proud reflection of the Texas Workforce Commission. And one last part, Commissioner Alvarez, thank you for allowing Anson, or inviting Anson and that team on the boot tour that we took. Anson and the team were part of that boot tour, and we got to know each other very well. But that was just an opportunity, again, where we were bringing the entire agency together to talk about the awesome tools that we have that we made available. So thank you to the advisory committee and the sentiments that have been expressed by our chairman and Commissioner Alvarez. I ditto those sentiments as well. And Anson, we wish you the best as you move forward. I know you'll go to Arkansas and do well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Demerson. And yes, he was up there with us at Taylor, I believe it was, back in February, where we have a lot of awards to both our instructional staff as well as our students. Taylor's a big part of what we do, and he was there with us with that. So we got to see it kind of firsthand. Thank you so much, commissioners. Any other comments before we move on? Great. So I want to thank the commissioners for joining us today. Your leadership, your good counsel have really been paramount in this during this time. So we really thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And last but not least, before we get started, in terms of the advisory committee members, I just want to thank you for being here, especially our presiding officer, Mary Jo, who's done such a wonderful job of keeping us on track and keeping us focused. So as you guys all know, and just a little bit of state information, and if you guys want to advance the slide, you can go ahead and advance the slide if you want. So as you know, during these last few months, have really presented a trying time for our Texans, and I'm very proud of the work that TWC as an agency has accomplished in response to the pandemic. We've been retooling staff, retraining TWC state staff, from many departments and many divisions to support the unemployment insurance functions of our agency, which have been huge during this time, including staff from AEL and from our department, and also just being super responsive to the local board needs in terms of funding and guidance so that they can continue to do service delivery at their level. So at an agency level, so many great things have come out of this, so much collaboration and speedy success. In terms of AEL and specific response for us, under Anson's leadership, I think we were really getting out of the gate very quickly. So really within the first 2 weeks or the first month of the pandemic really hitting us, in terms of, if you think about AEL in the past, it's a lot of sort of brick and mortar classes. And we had to figure out, how do we have a continuity of services that are going to continue during this time? And Anson really was at the charge of that leadership for us in order to continue the services that we provide and that are much needed for our students. And so really during that first 2 weeks to that first month during the pandemic, we were able to continue about 50% of the services that we had in the field by really ramping up our distance and remote instruction across the state. We were really quick to develop a website, and this was going to be like a one-stop shop, just-in-time place for our grantees and our constituents and our students to go to that were struggling with UI claims and where do I go to class and how do I continue to get services. And that was one thing that I think was really just paramount during that time. We were able to quickly and timely get out guidance to the field so that they could, update any processes or procedures that they have and know where we stood at the state level in terms of allowability of services and being creative and innovative during this time. We were also able to work with our professional development arm, which is TCAL. Many of you are everybody I think is aware of their function with us, and they've been a tremendous support during this time with retooling and retraining our instructors at the local level so that they are ready for the digital divide that sometimes occurs when moving students into a remote or distance learning environment. So we've had many obstacles, but I think that, and many challenges, but I think we've been there and we've just been hammering away at them and really working through them during this time and have had so much success. And our committee members are a great part of those successes. So I just wanted to bring that up and kind of make a statement kind of where we are right now in terms of the pandemic, some of the things that we've been able to accomplish. We're not done yet. We're working every single day and we always work tirelessly. My staff they're just amazing. So I wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit and get started with our actual meeting today and the content that we have. Mary Jo is going to take it over from here, and she is going to introduce the members and hear from them in terms of some updates from them. Mary Jo?
Thank you, Mahalia. Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm glad to be presenting from El Paso, Texas, and where it finally got down to a reasonable 99 degrees today. So before we go on, I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge the committee members that are online with us. So we'll begin with David Barron, Paul Fletcher, Tracy Berry, Diana Contreras, Tiffany Johnson, Mignon Lawson, Donald Tracy, and I think that's it, that I got all of the members. That we do have some that are missing, but they are with us in spirit, and we'll be updating them as soon as this comes along. Before we get to item number 3 on the agenda, we wanted to give some updates from all of the members. Just 2 or 3 minutes to see how they're doing at their particular industry, and with all of the COVID and the pandemic situation that we have right now. So I'll be queuing the members. We'll start with David.
Well, good afternoon, commissioners, volunteers, and staff members. In December, the end of December, the Texas Carpenters and Millwrights joined with the Louisiana Carpenter Training Fund, and we now are the Gulf Coast Training Fund. We have 7 schools between the 2 states. We are registered apprenticeship programs, and quite honestly, they're going very well. We started classes in earnest a month ago. We're in our 5th week here in Texas, our 4th week in Louisiana, and of course, we're taking all the precautions necessary to keep everybody safe. But our apprenticeship programs are doing well right now.
Okay, thank you. Paul, you're next.
Oh, good afternoon. This is Paul Fletcher from Workforce Solutions Rural Capital Area. We're the workforce board that covers the 9-county area that surrounds Travis County. We have been working very diligently since early March to first transition our workforce staff from our workforce centers to be able to do virtual service delivery, working from home. We transitioned very quickly to that and have been doing a very good job being able to serve all of our customers that can access our services virtually. We've added some new tools to better track our ability to answer and make phone calls so we can better control our resources. We've added some new tools to allow mass emailing and texting to customers so we can more quickly update them about what's going on, where the jobs are, those kind of things. We've done a really good job, I think, promoting what we're doing and how we're doing it via social media. We've got a great communications department at our board, and they do a very good job presenting that information. And now we're kind of to the point where we're working to phase ourselves back into the workforce centers, doing it in a very safe and careful way to be able to provide services for those customers that can't access our services virtually. So they're a large portion of our economy, and we got to be there to provide that service for them. So we're working on doing all the things we need to do to keep everything safe for the staff that are providing those services, as well as the customers themselves when they come in. So those things are underway and beginning to happen even as we speak. So that's kind of our update for right now.
Thank you, Paul. Tracy?
Good afternoon, everyone. Not surprisingly, Goodwill is working really closely with all sorts of partners across Central Texas and the state. The need is significant for the people who come to us for services. We've been giving out significant rental assistance. That has been a big need with unemployment being what it is and just the economy. And so now it's really about re-engaging individuals in a safe way for training purposes, for job placement and all that, which is a challenge. Our school right now, we operate our high school for adults. We saw an uptick. So we enroll students all year long, but typically in late spring, we see a very low number, typically between 30 and 40. And right in the middle of COVID, we had an enrollment of a new enrollment of 123 because their lives are changing and they need education and access and new employment skills. And so we just saw that immediately, and already we're seeing an increase in applications for our school and programming at which we've never seen before. And so I think that just goes how the need is significant. And now we're just trying to figure out how do we accommodate all of those students in a safe way? How do we pivot on a remote learning for students who are lower socioeconomic and don't have access to technology? And even if we're giving devices, how do we ensure that they have connectivity issues? Often we found during the spring, adults are trying to navigate, especially lower socioeconomic, they're essential workers. So they were trying to figure out how do they make money? How do they educate their kids at home when they might not have the technology or the skill set to give them the supervision they need, particularly younger when they have younger kids at home, and also continue their learning and access to workforce needs and training. And so trying to pull all those things together and support those individuals in the most robust way to ensure that they can get back in the workforce, I think is one of our biggest priorities and the greatest needs. I mean, we're just seeing those numbers, just like everybody else, just climb. And so, and given the fact that most of our student population is about 93% diverse, and they're really seeing the consequences of all that is going on. And then, of course, we're doing work, as you all know, in the prison system, and really trying to figure out how do we continue to do that, because they're going to get released. And right now, if they're released without the training and education they need and without the resources, and they're competing with all these other unemployed people who don't have criminal backgrounds, their chances are so small, and they need the same access to opportunity. So, we need to not forget about that population as well. TDCJ has announced they have the lowest incarcerated numbers that they've ever had. And so, and that means, again, they're going to be being released, and we have to prepare them for the workforce as well. And again, the equity that they've had, the equity is all off in that world. And so how do we kind of bring all that together and figure out how do we provide more opportunities to increase equity and access for all?
Thank you, Tracy. Diana?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here today, and it's nice to see everyone. So my name is Diana Contreras, and I am the Senior Director of Distribution and Operations for the Dollar General Corporation that handles all of Texas, part of Louisiana, New Mexico, and Arizona. And from a supply chain standpoint, I think our supply chain industry has done a phenomenal job trying to service the community and make sure that everyone has resources out there available to them during this time. Also, what we have seen is such an uptick in applicant flow, which I think is amazing, because this is a very manual labor industry, and sometimes the well runs a little dry. But speaking to the other partners that I've had in the community, the well is full. So it's very welcoming that if people are unemployed, that we are able to offer jobs with benefits and at a competitive pay. So in that respect, it's very good. Now, going through this current environmental status of everything is trying to reel that in and keep everything normalized and calm, and working through the technology updates that we have to do. So I think that's important that we continue to do that and have programs like this to bring more people to the table so that we can better service our community. But that's our update for right now.
Thank you so much, Diana. Tiffany?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiffany Johnson. I am a provider for our AEL contract, as well as several others, including an ATX4 and a distance learning initiative, which was just in time to implement. I'm at Victoria College in the Golden Crescent region, and I will say that it's very positive. I'm hearing very positive things. I thought, oh no, the updates from everyone's going to be all bad and negative, but I'm so excited that I hear so many positive things that are going on across the state. This is one of the few calls that I've been able to kind of connect with everyone. We too were very fortunate. We were in a good position to switch very easily to virtual. And we maintained about 50% of our students going through the last final months of our program. As someone's already mentioned, we've seen actually an uptick in applications, and we've been able to partner very closely with Workforce Solutions to kind of identify those who are already on unemployment and try to get them services and get them upskilled and through our programs before they are in a situation where they have limited job opportunities. We still have many employers here looking, and that's very promising. This past couple of weeks, I've actually met with 3 different employers wanting to start something to help out because of our limited space on our campus to hold classes. Obviously, our credit courses have social distancing in place, so they've had to make adjustments on allowing however many students into the classroom. So they're using up quite a bit more space. So we've had several employers who have stepped up and offered to have on-site job classes and move our training over to their facilities, which has been very, very exciting opportunities there. We're also, I was very excited last week. We had started a reentry program, and the pilot was set to begin on March 15th, which was the worst time possible to kick off a reentry project. We actually brought that back. So we are in our recruitment phase to identify parolees and newly released from our local, the Gonzales Intermediate Sanction Facility, so that we can put them through a training program and connect them with a couple of our employers here in our region. I do want to say, although we are pushing forward and this has been a good opportunity to kind of retool and gather some technology skills we didn't know we had, didn't know we needed, I want to say thanks really to the quick response. I know it's been mentioned before, but I will say as a provider that the TWC AEL team, they really were on point and gave us exactly what we needed when we needed it, but were also real flexible and allowed us to make the adjustments that we needed in order to keep going, because it was a very abrupt halt, and I know a lot of different programs had to adapt different ways. So it was really good to have that support in place and for us to be able to make some changes in our fields and depending on our area. And then one final thing I just wanted to mention, when we were home in April, I was contacted directly from a couple of the local legislators who were reaching out to me in a different capacity, and our discussions revolved a lot around the services that Adult Ed provides. And when we had these conversations, and I explained that the AEL program is not necessarily teaching reading and writing right now virtually, but more our navigators and our team and our staff are checking in with students and explaining the health risks and explaining the services and the resources that are out there, and helping the parents to understand the messages about school. And it was very uplifting to hear from our legislators who had I know they say they know what we do, but it was very uplifting to hear the positive responses that, wow, I'm so proud that your program is able to help our community in that way. And so I just wanted to pass that along statewide. I know that's what our adult ed providers were doing during the beginning of the pandemic. So that's my update. So thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Don, Tracy?
Good afternoon, guys. It's good to see everybody. It's been here. I guess I better turn my camera. It's been quite an adventure over the last few months, I think, for all of us. Just a quick update on what we're doing at the college. We are slowly starting to get back to doing things. I'm not even going to use the word normal. We're starting to move back in that direction a little bit. We're going to be reopening some of our campus locations on July the 6th, and starting some limited face-to-face training on our campuses on July 6th. That's our summer 2 session. Out in the community, you know, we do a lot of work out there. We've actually continued with some of our classes, but transitioned them to online. We do actually have a face-to-face class that's going in the construction trade program at Hayes Juvenile. So we've been able to go back and start doing that. Tracy, we have not been able to get back out to Lockhart yet, of course, but we're looking forward to getting back out to Lockhart Correctional Facility to finish up on some classes that started in the spring. It's been quite an adventure because, you know, particularly with the populations that we serve, many of them don't have access to technology. Even if we do provide technology, they don't necessarily have the skills to be able to use the technology. And so this exercise of taking hundreds in our little area and continuing at hundreds of class sections, and all of a sudden in a few days' time turning them into online training classes was a pretty significant challenge for us, but we got it largely done. We're seeing enrollment numbers right now that are pretty strong in the continuing education area, even though a lot of our stuff is being done online and will continue to be done online. Some of those things, students are still engaging with us and wanting to continue to learn, and so that's a very good thing. But we're really looking forward to transitioning back to some semblance of normalcy over the next several months as we sort of stair step into that. In our corporate training area, we actually just launched a very large project, an IT training project with IBM last week. All of that is being done online. So we were able to leverage some of that pre-work to put together a program for small businesses. And just to give you a sense, everybody is really interested in whatever this new model is going to be for conducting business, for living our lives. Just before this call, I was on with El Paso Community College, and they're interested in offering a digital training program for small business that we just put together, built on some of the pre-work that we did to get ready for the IBM project. So we're seeing some actually interesting new opportunities come up out of all of this scenario as well. So it's been an interesting challenge. We have a lot of folks that we're worried about who are on the outside looking in because of the real digital divide. And we're finding that there are some ways to bridge that divide, and we're starting to do it. And then hopefully we'll be back to some semblance of normalcy in the next few months. So that's where we are at the college.
Thank you, Don. Okay, the next one up will be Mignon.
Well, hello, everyone. We serve the West Central Workforce Board area. There's 19 counties out here. So we're the provider for those 19 counties. Abilene ISD is the fiscal agent for that. So what we are beginning to see is, I was in an administrators meeting yesterday with the ISD administrators, and beginning to see a lax of, where we can begin to start beginning to go back to some face-to-face classes with the social distancing. So we're starting to work towards that. We're also seeing that our Patty Hanks Shelton School of Nursing, which is our training partner for our CNA IET classes, they're opening up, and we are beginning to see, we seem to have a pretty good demand from our students who are wanting to get into that because they're needing that career, so that they can get back into the job market with a skill. We provided remote classes through this. One of the positives that came out of it is we saw some ESL students who had not been able to come because they didn't have childcare, but they reconnected with, once they could do Zoom classes, from home, that kind of took care of that barrier there. The flexibility that TWC gave us to do to kind of meet the participants' need in any way we could is basically, with the limits, of course, through this shutdown was greatly appreciated because there were so many different things to try to deal with the suddenness of the whole shutdown. And of course, one of the things that we saw, especially out here, was the barrier on the technology issues, because what we saw was usually, of course, as the lower their functioning level, the more the poverty level kicked in, then the less likely they were to have the technology that they needed to even participate in a Zoom class. One of the things that we're already working towards right now is, as we open back up and go to some of the face-to-face, some of the students want to continue to do Zoom because of childcare, especially now that we're kind of in the summer months. And so we've already looking at doing some hybrid classes where, while the face-to-face class is going on with social distancing and masks and those type of things, is that there will also be Zoom capabilities where some students can be joining that class. So it'll kind of be a hybrid class on the Zoom / face-to-face. Overall, things look positive for next year, but I will say, unfortunately for this community right now, our virus numbers are increasing again, which kind of has everybody on edge. So, there is a real reluctance to just totally open everything up. So it's going to be a very gradual opening and just see how things go. And we're trying to, come into serving the students in their comfort need of whether they want to continue the Zoom or whether they are comfortable coming back face-to-face with the social distancing and the mask and those things. So that's kind of where we are right now in Abilene and in the West Central area.
Thank you so much, Mignon. So I'll be the last member to just give a quick update in El Paso. As most of you all know, we're very social people, and so we're pulling our hair out because we want to get back to interacting with individuals. Luckily, the closure happened right at the spring break for my ISD, and that gave us a whole week to kind of just hit the ground running. We managed to do that. We had about 60% of our groups that had already been enrolled with us in February continue services via remotely or just over by phone. We also have technology issues, but our district, our K-12 side, really picked up and started lending out some of their K-12 laptops to our adult students, which was a blessing because we managed to get about 60 laptops to individuals' hands, and that was a great success. Now, our teachers had to wear another hat, which in AEL is we have a whole set of hats, and they were a lot of the counseling. We were trying to connect them to food services, food banks, and we weren't providing instruction, but we're providing all of the other services that AEL does, and we managed to connect some individuals. When I'll echo what the other providers said also, but what we're trying to do now is we're going to try to create something that tries to serve everybody, whether it's a hybrid option, completely virtual, because believe it or not, some individuals are working full-time, over full-time, and so they're not going to have enough time to go to class. So they prefer the virtual services. We also have some opportunity youth that don't like technology classes, virtual classes. So guess what? Just call me back when I can go face-to-face because I need that type of interaction. And as high school dropouts, that's understandable. They need a little bit more care than some adults can do without. Our district will start on July the 27th, but the first 3 weeks will be virtual only. And once we get closer to the 3 weeks, then we will be able to, based on the local numbers, our numbers are also increasing, and I think it's because of the whole social people that we are, and we're waiting to see how we transition either 25% first face-to-face and then 50%, 75%, and so forth. So we're hoping to get back in place, but in the meantime, we're trying to discover new ways. So thank you, commissioners, for sitting patiently while we were all giving you all updates from the boots on the ground in all of our industries. And now we'll move on to our discussion topic for this particular quarterly meeting, which is employer engagement. We have 3 presentations. The first one is regarding the AEL and workforce development integration, and this will be done by Paul Fletcher.
Well, good afternoon. You can go ahead and advance that to the next slide. So we're going to talk about the integration that we did. We started back in 2016 when Adult Ed became part of the Texas Workforce Commission. About the same time, they also brought in vocational rehab. So we were really working with 3 different organizations and trying to blend them all together. The leadership from those organizations met, and one of the first things we really talked about and figured out from each of those groups was that at the end of the day, all 3 organizations had really the same goal at the end, is that people that came out of our programs, and they all had the same goal. They needed to be in a self-sufficient employment situation, not just in a job, but in a career that would allow them to advance and continue to grow within that career or within that industry to continue to better themselves. We realized that to really do the integration, it wasn't just the leadership that needed to meet, but we needed to bring all of the frontline staff and the supervisors together to talk about what things they had in common, and also the things that we had that were different, and how we could use those differences to help best achieve the overall goals for everyone. So it enabled those frontline staff and the supervisors and the leadership to learn more about what Adult Ed did, what Workforce did, and what vocational rehab could do, so that when one of those customers presented in a workforce center or at Adult Ed or at vocational rehab, we would know which agency could best help them, and then we would make a referral. And we wanted to make sure it wasn't just here's a piece of paper with a name and a phone number on it. We called it a warm handoff. We wanted, we would pick up the phone, we would call the person at the other end, let them know the name of the person that was coming, make sure the person that we were referring knew where to go, how to get there. And then there was follow-up on the back end to make sure that the customer did make it and that they were given the services that they were supposed to get. So that was a big part of that integration meeting we had back in Buda back in spring of 2016, which now that I look back on it was about 4 years ago. We also discovered with our AEL partners the integrated education and training programs that they could put on, and that enabled us to really be able to do some skill training for customers that were not necessarily eligible for Workforce Investment Act funding, and for occupations that were not covered by our Workforce Investment Act funding, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funding, because they weren't a target occupation, but they were in demand. So we were able to train customers for things that we couldn't train them for previously, tap into some additional funds that we couldn't tap into before. So that was a big bonus for both our customers and for our employers in our area. And we would then take those customers and we could co-enroll them for support services. So while AEL was paying for that integrated education and training program, we could cover things like transportation or tools they might need for the job, something like that. You can go to the next slide. So as we met, the leadership met, and the frontline staff met, we had those meetings facilitated by a gentleman that was very well known in workforce named Greg Newton, who's no longer with us. But he came in and helped us really work through the process of, we wanted to have direct linkages, make sure that every door is the right door. So no matter where you went, we could get you connected to the right kind of services. We worked with each other to ensure that our services aligned with each other so that we could help customers move back and forth through those different organizations to get what they needed. The use of real-time technology enabled us to send that referral to the other organization and then follow up and do that tracking, so we knew what that the customer was getting the things that they needed to get. We did cross-training with staff, as we mentioned, so that they could be better able to understand what the other organizations did. If you don't have that understanding, it's really hard to refer somebody to a different organization if you don't have an understanding of what they're going to do on the other side. So the overall things we wanted to get out of this, we wanted to increase the quality of the referrals. So we wanted to do that by understanding better what each of us did. And then after we had that understanding, we wanted to increase the quantity. So once we knew what we were doing, it enabled us to really expand who we were making those referrals to and apply those resources to the largest number of people that we could. Next slide. So I don't want to read all this, but what we really developed and worked on as part of that integration was we wanted all the partners to commit to what we were going to do and how we were going to do that. So you can see there we had 5 things that were part of our vision, goals, and outcomes. And then the next slide, we also had these that were part of our visions, goals, and outcomes. So all these things kind of lined up to work together to allow us to provide a better service for each of our organizations for all the customers in our area. And next slide. And then these are the promises that we made to each other as organizations to make sure, you're having to put trust in a different organization when you refer a customer that you're wanting to help, and you refer that customer to that organization. You want to feel comfortable and know that they're really going to get the things that they should get once you send them over there. We're all banking our reputations on the fact that they're going to get what they're supposed to get once they arrive. So we thought these partner promises were very important, and those are things that we've adhered to and kind of evolved over the 4 years we've been doing this. And next slide. Okay, I think we're done. Thank you very much. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Paul. I was just going to write a comment in the group chat, but I guess I'll say it. I think that the partner promises are great to outline. Sometimes those are left unsaid and everybody just says, that's something we're all going to do, be transparent, be honest, but actually writing them down holds us all accountable to the customer. So that's a really great thing to do.
Thank you. I think one of the best things we did early on was we brought frontline staff together and we had potluck lunches for them, so that they all sat together and talked about what they did and really just shared, what each of them did. And we were really able to see at the end of the day, we're all doing this. We're all doing the same thing. We just all do it in a very different way. And using those differences is the best way to help the largest group of people that we can.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so if we don't have any other questions or comments, then we're going to move on to David Barron and the pre-apprenticeship courses.
Hi, good afternoon again. I took this project on because this is something that's near and dear to my heart. We are an apprenticeship training provider. We train carpenters and millwrights. As a high school educator and both as an administrator, I always had internship programs as part of my CTE courses. I can tell you that I've seen the advantage of that, where it takes young people from knowing almost nothing to being ready to go to work in a short amount of time, and it's because of that industry involvement. So this program is important to me because I've been looking for a way to link registered apprenticeship programs a little closer to high schools and what high schools are doing. However, that's not the only application, but it is the application that I took when I put this presentation together. Next slide, please. So the Department of Labor talks about a pre-apprenticeship program as a set of strategies designed to prepare individuals to enter or succeed in a registered apprenticeship program. That separates it out from internships, non-internships. This is more like a junior college getting you ready for college, if you want to look at it that way. The next slide, please. What's important here is that you create a curriculum between the pre-apprenticeship program and the apprenticeship program, with an understanding that when those students complete that pre-apprenticeship program, they'll be coming into the registered apprenticeship program. And of course, with any apprenticeship program, there should be strategies there so that there's a long-term vision going on. And as always, we look to provide opportunities for underrepresented, disadvantaged, and low skilled, and that's recommended by the Department of Labor in pre-apprenticeship programs. Next slide, please. Okay. So here's the things that they recommend. If you're interested in doing one of these programs, they highly recommend that you put a lot of time into your recruitment. Look for those underrepresented populations, and that's important to us in the union that we do that. Educational and pre-educational services, and that's where other services from community colleges come in, and also those that the high schools provide, so that the students are ready to go to work or to at least enter the pre-apprenticeship program. And then those services in some cases will need to continue both in the pre-apprenticeship program as well as the apprenticeship program. The purpose of the pre-apprenticeship program is not only to begin some training, but also some exposure. As an educator, as a CTE teacher, I was just as happy with a student who said, you know what, hey, thanks for the opportunity, but this is not what I want to do. You know, at least I know one thing I don't want to do. And the pre-apprenticeship program can be that every bit as much as it can, helping to prepare somebody for what they know they want to do. We want to make sure that things like English classes for speakers of other languages are available, along with other support mechanisms to help people obtain a career. And again, we're not talking jobs, we're talking careers. Next slide, please. So here again, the Employment Training Administration of the DOL recommends that you should collaborate, look for a program to partner with that's a registered apprenticeship program. You've got to be very careful. It cannot be a pre-apprenticeship program or an apprenticeship program if it's displacing paid employees. And they're looking for meaningful hands-on training that simulates the industry. That means in our particular case, where we tend to teach our classes inside an air-conditioned building during the summer, we do also take them outside and build some scaffold and do some other work so they understand the conditions. And then looking for MOEs, looking for those memorandums of understandings or those written articulation agreements where when a student completes that pre-apprenticeship program, they have a direct entry into a registered apprenticeship program is vital to both to the student and also to the program itself. Next, please. All right. So the things that are important to have if you're putting one of these programs together, registered apprenticeship sponsor, workforce development agencies to have them involved, economic development agencies, business and industries. Any one of these groups can start a pre-apprenticeship program as well as sponsor an apprenticeship program, and the two go together like a hand in a glove. Next, please. I wanted to point out on this particular slide the advantages for a high school. For high schools that are looking for getting that completer credit, providing students with a clear pathway to employment may help a student finish the program. We have a lot of students that are looking for ways to help the family earn money if you can get them into pre-apprenticeship programs. Some of those pre-apprenticeship programs will have guarantees into the apprenticeship programs, which means they'll start earning money right away when they get into the apprenticeship program. And for the high schools, 2 or more, currently students who complete 2 or more courses for 2 or more credits within a program of study earn a concentrator status for Perkins funding. What's proposed for next year is students finishing 3 or more courses or 4 or more credits with 1 course in level 3 or 4 within a program of study to earn completer status for federal accountability reporting. It may include a pre-apprentice component. And so again, for high schools that may not have the facilities to finish out those students in a high quality program, they may be able to pass them on to a pre-apprenticeship program out in the workforce where those students, you know, with a community college with a registered apprenticeship program already, and allow those students to finish and also earn completer status for Perkins funding. And I think with that, we're pretty much done.
Thank you, David. I think that pre-apprenticeship programs especially are helpful with AEL partnering. We as AEL providers here in Texas, we're providing the IETs that can help with the actual hands-on training to prepare them, and we can serve as as the screening tool for individuals to the adults, whether they do want to go into this industry or not. And that would be a great opportunity for AEL to step in and create these pre-apprenticeship programs.
Absolutely right.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody have any questions before we move on to the employer perspective and internships to be presented by Diana Contreras? Okay, I think we're okay, Diana, go ahead.
All righty, everyone. So we're going to talk a little bit from the employer side and internships. You can take it to the next slide, please. So the next couple slides talk about just kind of employer objectives and candidate objectives, but the internship program is a very wide program that affects, you know, the employer, colleges. You're working with the Texas Workforce Commission, AEL. So you've got students involved in that. You've got entry level, intermediate level, and all the way up to the exempt level. So it can handle, the internship program can handle a very wide spectrum across the state of Texas of anyone that wants to come into the workforce. So from an employer's objective and perspective, we can see that it's mutually beneficial. There's a large candidate pool that is year-round and it's consistent. And what employers are wanting are retention. So every meeting that you go to, any meeting that I've been to, when they have the Q&A, the questions that always come up is, how do you handle retention? And that is like the golden question. Everybody's like, oh, if I could retain them, that would be amazing. So when you have an internship, that may help with the retention portion of it. It allows you, the employer, to test drive the talent and kind of see where their strengths and weaknesses are. There are definite financial gains in that. Employers don't necessarily pay a recruiting fee, which can be kind of costly. And the other thing is, when it goes back to retention, you're not having to constantly bring people in. So how many times have we seen when an employee comes in and they look at it and they're thinking, oh, I can do this job, or this is the field I want to go in, and then they come in a couple months down the road after you've spent $4,000 onboarding them with benefits and training, and they go, oh, this is not for me. So there's definitely some financial gains for the employer, and the contribution is we keep our community working. We keep the livelihood of everybody happy. The quality of life is better. And if you take it to the next slide, it brings into what is in it for the intern. So the intern, when they come into it, their assessments of where their strengths and weaknesses are. So every candidate now, from entry level all the way up to high executive level, it's always, I'm looking for growth and development. They want to explore what career is right for them. I've seen so many come in and they may have something in data entry or like a WMS IT, but then they want to go into operations, or vice versa. They decide that they want to learn something about WMS or human resources, and then they want to change into something else. So it gives them an insight into the company and into the organization, whether that organization is manufacturing, construction, health, or supply chain, or anything that they want to do, on what they can expect and what it really looks like for them, and what their daily operations are and what their organizational tasks are, and so forth. And then we give them guidance in a professional manner, professional leadership. You've got your KSAs, your knowledge, your skill sets, your abilities. So it becomes, yes, an easier approach to learning and gives them access into some things that they didn't know about prior to signing up with the organization. Next slide, please. So the overview is number one, you'd find out who would be interested in an internship program, what the candidates want from the program, and most of it will be growth and development. Some will actually come in and say, I want to be somewhere where I can make definitely a financial gain. They want to see accomplishment in themselves. It can be various levels, and then you have different types of internship programs, and I've kind of given 3 examples there. So in my particular industry and my company, We have a corporate program that ranges from kind of May to August, which is corporately sponsored, and I take interns from all over, even out of the country. The second one is I work with the local colleges, Palo Alto colleges, and I get interns that are students. I get interns that they are trying to get into school and trying to find out what career path they want. And this is a little bit shorter. It can be a 6 to 8 week to just give them an on-site into what we do as an organization. And then the third one is a longer full-time entry level or exempt level employment that can last as long as a year. And if they like it, they can stay in the industry and get all kinds of skills, from mechanical skills, professional skills, all the way up to becoming an exempt member of the team. Now with that, in our current environment with COVID-19, we've had to look at, is there an opportunity for virtual platforms? And it's become very easy. I did one last week as a test pilot to have an intern, and said, well, let me give you a virtual tour of the warehouse and take you around. And it was about a 2.5 hour tour, and it went fabulously. I didn't know how it was going to work out at first, because you're walking around trying to explain it to them, but they really enjoyed it. It helped. It's probably not as good as being there in person, but it's the next best thing. And then the last thing is placement. So when you partner with the employers and the candidates, you eventually have post-employment programs for them that are out there. And we can go to the next slide. Thank you. The next thing is identifying internship partners. And these are just some of the examples that are out there, definitely not all of them, but I know it's several of them. Coca-Cola has internship programs, Dollar General, Walmart, H-E-B, Amazon, TWC, AEL, and I'm sure there's a gazillion employers out there that would love an internship program based on the candidate needs and the employer respects and what it does for them. So that is something we can target. And we have such a wonderful workforce in Texas that the abundance is out there for everyone. Next slide. And this we just talked about a little bit. I brought this up because we have so many different platforms. Right now we're on Zoom, there's Teams, this is Adobe. And not only the virtual internship, it'll give the candidate a chance to network, chat, maybe find out from another partner, well, I'm doing this at my employer. What are you doing at yours? What are some good questions I can ask? And it's a support group. You've got live streaming. They can look at stuff. There's platforms. And I think that's kind of where we're going to in this current COVID situation that we're in, but it's very feasible. The biggest thing is the employer has to take on the licensing and the cost of that, but that becomes very easy down the road. Next slide, please. So the intern selection, this is what's interesting, is you have to focus on sourcing. You know, David and Paul were talking about things like that, but you do interviews. You can do interviews and pick kind of the field of choice. Employers will complete kind of a pre-appointment process. They can interview with the employer. This could take up to 60 days. I don't know what some of the onboarding is, depending on if they want them to be pre-screened for health or if they have the ability to work vigorously. The AEL and TWC, you know, representative can follow up and check in accordingly. And then of course, the last thing that comes up is sometimes is there allowance or a monetary supplement during the program. So if someone is working out of a job somewhere else, or maybe they lost their job and they want to come in, you know, what is that compensation and what does that look like during the internship program? And I can tell you what we would do is bring the person on and pay them regular salary and put them on the payroll. So they don't have to worry about not being paid during the internship program. Next. And then so this is just a timeline. It's nothing set in stone. It's just something that the team could talk about, but it could move very quickly if an employer already has an internship program set up. If someone doesn't, then you can actually set one up from the ground up, and there's just a timeline taking us all the way through August, like a kickoff and speaking to employers, learning positions, the interviewing and final partnerships, and then once you get the intern in, you allow them to kind of do a round robin of all the functions, but then you also give them projects. That way you can assess their knowledge, their abilities, their skills. And then you kick it off, and then HR finalizes all the offers, and now you have an intern coming in from different levels depending on what they need. Next slide, please. And then the projects can be as easy as, I just want you to reorganize an area, or it can be something, I need a process improvement, or it can actually be, I need a policy change. So depending on the intern, the entry level, intermediate level, executive level, you can decide what you want based on employment strategies, what the organization needs, and have the interns work on that. And it's a great thing because you get another set of eyes, you get another set of data, you get another view on a perspective that maybe is closed-minded. So I think having a project for them and allowing them to see kind of how to improve the company is always a win-win. Next one, please. So then when they get done with the internship program, the employer can give them an assessment. This is just a basic form that we just pulled off the internet. That was an interview form, but it can be a little more in depth, like an evaluation to say, hey, maybe it's your soft skills we need to team up and have you work on. Maybe it's your technical skills and application, but maybe it's something else. So the interns can actually see what they need to work on to become better professionals at whatever they do, at any level. And each one gets an observation, and they have the ability to give comments and what they're going to do to improve. And that pretty much completes our intern employer perspective. Do we have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I'd like to provide a comment and maybe ask a question in a sense. I'm very interested in the internship aspects, Diana, and thank you for bringing that report, and thank you for the interest as well. I believe I have members of my team on the call as well, and so we'll follow up with you. I'd love to follow up with you to let you know what we're doing. As a matter of fact, in a couple of weeks, or a week out, I'm going to be bringing attention to the world of interns, and there are a number of state agencies out there that have internship opportunities, and these are all virtual internships, and a number of private sector employers that are out there that have internship programs as well. And so we're trying to bring attention to that fact that even in this current environment, that those opportunities still exist. And so for our Texas employers that have those needs or want those to have those interns, we want to make sure that we're not thinking just because we're in this situation that that's not taking place. And so we've been able to provide some opportunities to interns here at the Workforce Commission, about 7 or 8 on board right now. There may be even more. And I know other agencies like TxDOT and a few of the other agencies, TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, they have internship programs as well. So glad to see you guys diving into this from an employer standpoint, and we're excited to let you know what we're doing in any way that we can collaborate statewide. We want to play a role in that space. We were doing that with students in foster care, trying to provide opportunities, and we can do the same on the AEL side if there's a fit, and we just need to talk about it and see what works to see if we can bring those together. So
Thank you, Commissioner Demerson. I love it. I think it's wonderful, and a lot of them sometimes have a very small structure and intern, and of course mine is very broad, but entry level, intermediate level. When I was doing some work with the TWC, I was like, bring them. We can take them, train them, teach them. I think it delivers a wealth of information, and I have a lot of interns. I carry probably the highest number of interns in my organization, because I think the program is very vital to our organization.
So, Madam Chair, thank you for allowing the opportunity to speak, and excited about what we're doing there. Cassandra Medrano on my team will be in touch with you in regards to what we're doing. And
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. And the reason that we wanted to bring these 3 topics here specifically were because, as you may recall, one of the recommendations in our annual report was to engage with employers, whether it's through workforce development boards or directly with employers, and of course apprenticeship programs. So as AEL, as the AEL Advisory Committee, we're trying to investigate different kinds of paths that we can help our students here in Texas to find their way into a career, whether it's through the actual apprenticeships of anything, right? It could be trades, or it could be office work, or internships, and get the employer perspective of how. I'm glad Diana opens her doors to just anybody, because sometimes the case, in our case with employers, there's always a liability issue. You know, we're dealing with adults here. And so we don't have high school or minors, and there's always a liability issue. And sometimes it's hard, and I'm speaking as a provider, to navigate those waters where we don't know what we can do. We've partnered with Workforce Development Solutions to provide paid or unpaid work experience, so that's great too. But maybe the AEL, as the commissioners and the AEL department can navigate and bring some type of guidance to the providers so that we can serve the employers, the apprenticeships, and of course the Workforce Development Solutions boards better.
Good. Well, we have my team's on board in terms of looking into that and working with Carrie and the staff here and the advisory committee as well, and anything that we can do to provide opportunities for those Texas employers. We want to do that. The benefit there are our Texas employees, which is the population base that you guys are serving. And we want to create a win-win situation where we can. So we will be in touch with Carrie and the team to make sure that what you guys are doing, if it dovetails into what we're doing, we want to present the opportunities to do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mahalia and Elena, this is the first virtual meeting that we've held, so that's the end of our agenda. I know that in person we usually chit chat a little while more, but I think virtually our attention span is tested all the time. So I'll hand it over to you, and if we need to talk about anything else, we can do so, or otherwise, you all can end the meeting.
Madam Chairman, before we dismiss, can I say a few words?
Yes, sir.
Because I'm going to have to go to something else, but I did just before, there are some comments from our AEL department. I just want to inform you all that this was a very informative discussion. And so I appreciate everything that was placed in, before us as far as agenda items. As Commissioner Demerson referenced earlier about internships, we've been pretty successful, but with his leadership, I feel very strongly that we're going to be elevating that program to the next level. And what he's doing to work with other state agencies is very impressive. I'm glad to hear that Diane has mentioned that these are paid interns or somehow receiving some type of stipend. We understand the population that we're dealing with, so it's very important to consider that. I prefer the paid. And I appreciate that was referenced. As a matter of fact, I was going to ask that on the chat line. And of course, we have folks like Tracy, Dawn, and of course, Paul Fletcher, who were very instrumental in what they've done to look at that population of individuals that have been incarcerated. For people to know, I'm very committed to making sure that population gets served. And it was referenced earlier that population continues to get smaller and smaller. So I thank those for acknowledging that. And I think the boards have worked well. Paul thinking outside the box, Tracy and Dawn, I mean, that's very impressive. I think there are ways that we've been working with other agencies to figure out if we can create firewalls. I mean, they create them in San Jose or in San Francisco in the Bay Area so that they can provide training for those individuals that are behind bars. And I think we could do the same thing. And then the last thing I'd like to end with is the fact that everyone pretty much discussed the digital divide. My focus has always been those adult learners, the very same folks that we're addressing here today. We know that many of the schools that were let out, whether it was a community college, technical school, or vocational school, they still had that barrier, and it was fascinating, or I should say, it was quite troublesome to hear that the instructors that were actually informed to teach these kids didn't even have computers or access to internet themselves. Right. And so as an agency, I think that we have allowed the boards, I know of some boards that in their in some of their requests to the agency regarding the funding that we allocated, that there are opportunities, and especially those apprenticeship programs as well, for them to have opportunities to continue that instruction from home. As I have seen the direction that we're going to be training individuals, and I think computers, I think distance learning is going to be the new norm. I think digital access, broadband access is no longer going to be a luxury, it's going to be a necessity. And so I appreciate the conversation that you all have had regarding all of the areas that I think the commission and the boards have taken an active role in playing. And then pre-apprenticeship programs now are being discussed with TEA about incorporating that. Our conversations with TEA have been, we want to look at possibly incorporating pre-apprenticeship programs back into the high schools. And so we're real excited about that. And as we get closer to the legislative session, we would appreciate any feedback or any recommendations that this board would have, as you referenced earlier, your recommendations last session. Those that I just laid out in front of you would be those items that we will be laying out from this office for the upcoming legislative session. And there is some really good momentum on all of them. So thank you for taking time and allowing the commissioners to partake in today's discussion. Very informative. And just so that you don't miss a show, you're doing a really good job as chairman. And we really appreciate all the work that the volunteers contribute to the discussion. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, and for your time and your leadership and your support. I think this group is a really strong group, and we cover a lot of different industries, and it's very helpful to just bring the whole circle together on different perspectives.
May I ask one,
yes,
bring up
Tracy.
one thing to the commissioner? Because he pointed out something that I think is really important, where I think that we could use your help on. I think the digital divide is one of the biggest issues that we have, and we saw that with all of our parents, our students working with their children, the access. And so I think that's really important. But one thing you touched on, where we have significant opportunity, is the lack of technology in prison facilities. And I was at a corrections conference in January where states, all states were there, and we're significantly behind compared to states that you wouldn't even think that are ahead in terms of, some of the Midwestern states and whatnot. But the fact that we don't have, that we haven't made the kind of progress we need to give, safely bring in technology. I know there's security concerns, but to your point of firewalls, there's absolutely ways to do this. And I think that we really need to push for more opportunities there, because this is during this COVID time it was already bad, but I think the light is so much brighter on their lack of technology and what we could provide those men and women who are just sitting there. And this could have been time where we could have been not only using the technology, but if they're learning the technology, they're going to be more successful on the outside because they don't even know what it's like, right? And so I think we've missed a huge opportunity, and I would just ask you in your position to help advocate for the ability to do more learning and technology access in a safe way.
So that's a great question, and Folsom Prison does it. And I know that part of the skills development team and I, and under Commissioner Demerson at the time when he led the Office of Employer Initiatives, we were having these discussions on how we could serve that population. And we've had this discussion with Anson. I think there's opportunities there, and what's been brought in, to us as far as COVID-19, I think it's allowed us to be a little bit more flexible. I mean, that was evident by your involvement in Lockhart with of course, Paul and Don Tracy. I think there's opportunities there. We have talked to individuals in prisons and wardens about firewalls. I mean, there's something already in place, and I agree. I think we're a little behind. Sometimes they talk about how would we pay for this thing? When Diane was talking about, the digital divide, people ask, okay, so, the governor set up a committee now that was appointed by him to actually look at that digital divide and how we could improve it. And I will tell you that one of the things that I brought to their attention was, the idea of creating, hotspots or internet connectivity. And we understand for companies, there's no return on their investment. So they were looking at a funding source. So we literally wrote a bill that we hope to have someone carry it next year. And it specifically addresses that when you purchase a lotto ticket, proceeds would go to, boards or EDCs, or we haven't decided how we're going to finalize it, but it's a bill that would allow the proceeds to go specifically to areas that lack broadband service. And so people love it. There's momentum behind that bill. It doesn't cost us anything. There's no fiscal note attached to it. And so, I specifically looked at it because I saw trade schools and apprenticeship schools that lacked internet connectivity in some of the rural parts of Texas. And so I just wanted to see people graduate. I didn't think that it was, I thought it was something that we certainly could tack on. But I do know that, Tracy, if you and Dawn and Paul have an opportunity, I'd love to discuss this with Representative James White, who's very interested in, as you know, what his position is on those individuals that have been incarcerated. But I do think that there are some solutions to that. I would love to be a part of that discussion.
Commissioner, this is Paul Fletcher. Be happy to join you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mahalia. So I don't know how do we just call this the meeting, or do you have any closing comments?
Well, I think I would first I just want to say really great discussion today. I've taken about probably 4 or 5 pages of detailed notes to kind of follow up on. We have such a unique opportunity, I think, right now, and particularly with, this group and the strong leadership that we have at our back with the commissioners. And all the things that we've discussed today are things that I think have just always kind of been out there in the peripheral, and so while we're building all these other things just to kind of transfer the program, now it's there. We're doing the integrated education and training. One thing that I did want to bring up is that here in the next waking hours, we're going to start working on our strategic plan. And when we start working on that strategic plan, as you guys know, that, one of the big purposes and critical points for y'all in your leadership and your expertise is to help us to kind of look and forecast, 5, 10 years. Where do we want to go? What do we want to do? And what do we want to accomplish in adult education? And all of these things that are getting brought up are all opportunities for us to, make commitments where we want to as an agency. So I would just say kind of keep that in mind as we continue through those discussions in the next couple of weeks and months as we move that timeline forward. I think it's in December that we'll be trying to finalize that plan, and you guys are going to be part of the discussion for that. So. But I just say thank you so much for your time. I think we're all probably tapped out on our Zoom, our Zoom time for the day that we can go. Carrie, did you want to say anything before we depart here?
I wonder if I could just get
Sure.
on the conversation and ask that, since we're looking at vehicles that we need, we're an international organization, and I've got to tell you, I'm pretty envious of my Canadian brothers and sisters because they provide, the federal government up there provides insurance for young people who want to go into pre-apprenticeship programs, go into internships starting at age 17. So companies don't have to worry about the liability issues. There's some rules with it, which are common sense kind of thinking rules. But I would love to see us start addressing how do we get, because I think we all would agree that the way the industry is today, to wait until they're 18, 19, 20 years old to try to get them into a good paying career, we need to start earlier. And if we could have them coming to internships, and as I said before, as an educator, I had internships, absolutely wonderful vehicle to get young people set on a career, understand what's expected of them, and get them off on the right foot. Apprenticeship does that as well. But if we could start them at 17 instead of having to wait till they're 18, it would be just one more way to help them get a leg up, especially those that need to go to work, who may otherwise be dropping out of school because they need the income.
Right, right.
That's it.
Very good points. Thank you. So thank everyone for being here with us today. Powerful conversations and such good thoughts being brought out. And Mahalia, congratulations on a wonderful maiden AEL Advisory Committee voyage. You did great. Thank you to Elena and AEL staff for putting this together. And Mary Jo, well done on the agenda planning and identifying the topics. We were very pleased to see that you had such strong ideas about what you wanted the committee to talk about and put together a great series of information for us. So thank everyone. Stay in touch with us as you identify these new challenges we can address. And Mahalia, well done. Thank you.
Problem. You guys are rock stars. We'll see you next time, and keep your emails peeled for any further correspondence. We'll be looking for your expertise.
Thank you all so much. You have a great day, a great rest of your summer, and we'll be talking here soon, planning out the next meeting. Thank you so much.
Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. All right. Bye-bye.